Can you recover completely from carbon monoxide poisoning?
You can. In fact, most people do. But those that suffer permanent brain damage can have accommodations, and we have clients that we get that sort of help for. But fully recovering the neurologic damage that's been done to your brain or the tissue in your heart, there's no fully recovering from that.
Statistically, um, in the people that have been poisoned enough to be identified in a hospital system, about 60% have what I would call apparent full recoveries. 40% are believed to have delayed neurological deficits, meaning they're continuing to struggle with neurological problems, um, at least for a few weeks after the poisoning. In our experience, that 40% is probably a little light and would depend on two factors. One, how high the poisoning was, even though statistically it's often said not to make a difference, but more importantly, how many times the brain was exposed to those levels. So unfortunately, the nature of the cases we get, in at least half the cases, the people get poisoned on more than one a day. And often they may be poisoned for several weeks with the levels getting progressively higher until either someone goes out and buys a detector which warns, which happened in both of our Appleton cases, or the um, the cumulative effect there is figured out by some doctor somewhere along the line. Um, so in the cases where you've been getting hit with 2 to 300 parts per million every cold day for months, in those cases, um, there's a much higher probability, well over 50% in our experience. And we've seen situations like that where every family member, or 4 out of 5 or 6 out of 7, are going to be affected. And we know that not just because they're ill, but their MRIs show the damage. Um, so yes, a single exposure to even quite significant carbon monoxide levels, I've seen as high as a 50% level in someone who had a complete recovery, that can result in um, completely getting better. But if you've had a significant poisoning, and especially if you fit into some of the categories of people who are more vulnerable, there's a significant probability that approaches 50% that you will have permanent problems. And typically that starts with things that the brain does or controls.